Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Hey guys, it's Jared. Welcome to another episode of All Things Crime. And I want to apologize for it being a couple of weeks since I put out an episode. I have been traveling, basically training and doing demos for the M-Vac in Sydney, Australia, and the UK, Scotland, just all over the place for basically 4 out of the past 5 or 6 weeks. And so I've got a couple episodes out, but I've been lacking and just been exhausted, to be honest. And so I apologize about that. So welcome, and appreciate you listening and or watching this on YouTube or Rumble. And I wanted to throw out a couple of things. First of all, I have a couple of really exciting episodes coming up. I have Detective Steve Connor, who recently retired from Aurora PD in Colorado. He was a homicide detective for a long time. Got some episodes from him coming. Congressman Burgess Owens is going to be coming up. So, as well as there's an IT specialist in Connecticut named Josh Quint. He's a good friend of mine. He has some insights into tech, especially like cell phone tech, but even being able to triangulate where gunshots go off, things like that. And so those are all episodes coming up. So definitely subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you get alerted whenever a new episode is launched. And please share the podcast and the show. And I appreciate all of you that are out there that are loyal listeners, and any kind of feedback you guys have, I'd love to hear it. So definitely throw that out at me. But the episode that I wanted to do today is, it's 2 days away from Father's Day. And, Father's Day is always a great time. We're coming into the summer months, and, it's always a fun time to celebrate fathers. And, obviously Father's Day has a special meaning for me as well. And my dad was just an amazing guy. And as all of you know, he's also the inventor of the M-Vac system. But there's a lot that maybe you didn't know, and so I wanted to throw some of that out today, and especially in talking with Congressman Owens, one of the things that he talks about a lot is the importance of fathers in the household, and if it's not a father, then it's a positive role model, and so I want to get into some of that because there's a direct correlation between the rise of crime and the number of fathers or positive role models in the household. And so there's we want to discuss that here in just a second. So as you know, or maybe you don't know, but Dr. Bruce Bradley was my dad. And he wasn't only the inventor of the M-Vac system, but he also did a lot of amazing things. And I wanted to share just a few things about him, just to give you guys kind of a heads up of what and how the M-Vac came about, but also kind of what motivates me to do what I do. And but also just to honor all fathers and all the positive men out there, the positive role models that you provide, because it's really, really important. Most of societies don't really function really well without a positive role model for the men to teach, especially the young men. So my dad he grew up in Idaho, grew up on a ranch, and did farming, a little community of 300. I remember he would tell me stories of they used to go out and milk cows before school, and they had about an hour-long bus ride into Aberdeen, Idaho, which is another small community, but a lot more than 300 people. So that's where he was bused into school. And then right after school, he had to jump back on the bus and go home because he always had chores. And um, so, as far as working hard and learning, work ethic and things like that, I personally, I don't know anybody that was ever who could outwork my dad. Just absolutely amazing, amazing guy. Um, give you an idea. So when I was really young, we lived in Moscow, Idaho, where the University of Idaho is, and he graduated from there. And then he went to Washington State University and got his PhD, and he has a PhD in microbiology and animal sciences from Washington State, and he did all of that, and while raising four boys. So those of you that are parents that have boys, you know how much energy that takes. So, it's not slight on my mom at all. I mean, salute to her. She is she's a trooper, and she's still around. And man, I just hearing stories from her, as well as whenever we get around my brothers and we start talking. A lot of times she just doesn't want to hear some of the things that we did when we were growing up that she didn't know about. but it was always my dad that was keeping us in line. And I'll tell you, if it wasn't for his influence, I can't even tell you where I would be. It wouldn't be good, I'll tell you that. And so he got his PhD, and I think it was around. Here's an example of the type of guy my dad was. So not only was he in school full time, getting his PhD, raising four children, four boys specifically, and we were all crammed in there. I think four boys in like 6 years or something like that. So really tight in there. But he was also building his own home. So we had 10 acres of property out on Moscow Mountain, if you know where that is. It's anyway, Moscow and where Washington State, they're only about 10 miles away. So University of Idaho and Washington State are both right really close to each other. So he went to University of Idaho, got his bachelor's, and then went over to Washington State. So we lived in the same home and on the same property for the entire time that we were up there. And initially, we all lived in a little trailer house, kind of on a different part of the property. And then he ended up building a home, and he basically did most of the work himself. I mean, we had lots of helps from neighbors and members of our church group, but he did a lot of that labor, just he and my mom. And yeah, this is all while he's in school full time. So yeah, he was a busy man, but with his work ethic, they were able to pull it off. And so that's just kind of the guy he is. And I remember there was a time when I was I want to say 9, something like that. I was a pretty young kid, and we were digging the septic, the drain field for the septic area. That anyway, it was just, I don't know, 100 meters away from the house. And when you live way out there, you're not tied in. There's no city services, so we had a well that we got all of our water from, and then the septic was just a drain field. So I remember I was up there, and all the boys were up there helping him dig this, and then lunch hit, and so we all went inside to grab some lunch, and then after lunch, my brothers disappeared, and I probably would have too, but I didn't know that was an option. So I ended up going back out there and helping my dad. And once you're out there, it's not like I can make some kind of a crazy excuse like I want to go play. I was working again, so I remember just kind of accepting my fate and going to and just working. And I ended up working the rest of the afternoon with him and helping him dig this drain field. So the interesting thing was, at the end of the day, my dad actually paid me $5, And this was back in mid 70s. So $5 to a kid that's 9 years old in the mid 70s, that was a lot of money. And I asked him, why he paid me that money. And he said, well, because you came back out after lunch and you helped me finish the job. And so in his mind, it was kind of expected. He could have gone and searched out and probably found my brothers, but um, you know, forcing kids to work, sometimes it takes more energy than just doing it yourself. But I think he knew he'd gotten enough work out of them that he'd it was good for the day. But he wanted to reward me for coming back out. And again, it's not like I want to go all noble on you guys. It's because, frankly, as a 9-year-old kid, I probably would have escaped if I had known that was an option, but I really didn't. So that's how I ended up. But it was a great learning experience, and that teaching moment was just one of many that my dad had given me specifically. But that's just kind of the type of a man he was, where it didn't matter what time it was. It didn't matter if he needed sleep or food or whatever. The work got done, and he was always that way. And I think most of the men and women that grow up on ranches, farming, the people that a lot of times it doesn't matter what it really doesn't matter, what kind of uncomfortable situation you're in. When the work has to get done, it has to get done. And Dad was always like that. He um, after he got his PhD, we spent a couple years in Vermont, but then we moved back to Idaho, and he just didn't like the corporate environment, and so he went back to Idaho and opened up his own small business. He had a service lab that was mostly oriented toward the dairy industry, and I'll tell you, it was amazing how many nights he was there till midnight or later, fixing machines or doing work that had to be done before we opened the next day. And he was just always, it was just incredible how long and how hard he could work when it had to be done. And that's just the work ethic that he always showed us. And so we had that example. It was really incredible that and a lot of the work ethic that I see in my brothers, and the work ethic that I have, I think a lot of that comes from the example that my dad showed me. So also, while he was working this his small business, his lab, the idea of the MVAC came to him. And so, and that was probably mid 90s. And once that idea came to him, then he really started developing the MVAC and the idea and the concept in earnest. He didn't have any money, and he also didn't have any spare time to do it. So once he finished the work that he needed to do at the lab, then he would work on developing the MVAC, and he would do that at night. And he did that for years and years and years. And it's also pretty incredible. I think about him in context of growing up around him. I also remember he was a scoutmaster for 20 years, and I remember at his funeral there were probably at least a dozen guys that came up to me after the funeral, and they were saying, "You know what? Your dad was such an amazing influence on me that I'm not sure I'd be where I am today if it hadn't been for your dad." Because all those boys, and there were hundreds and hundreds of them that went through that scouting program. I don't know how he did it. I mean, personally, I have two 12-year-old twins and an 11-year-old, and whenever they are around all of their friends, which is the Boy Scout age, boy, some of those times, I just want to strangle them. And so, how my dad did it, I don't know, but he did, and he was taking boys up into the hills to show them camping skills and get them out into the outdoors, which is so critical for the development of young men. Um, it's just pretty wild. It's just amazing when I think about it. So, but one of the things that I really want to impress upon all of you is, um, it's 2022, and we lost my dad in 2009. So it's been about 13 years since my dad passed away. So, all of you, as we celebrate Father's Day here in a couple of days, make sure to give your dad a hug. And if you don't have a dad, then uh, make sure to thank somebody that is a positive role model to you. Because I'll tell you, you think they're going to be around forever, but I promise you they're not. And my dad was taken from me and taken from us in 10 months, from the time that he was diagnosed with his brain tumor to the time that he was gone was 10 months. And that 10 months went by so fast, it was just absolutely incredible. But between the surgery, he had to get a bunch of his, the tumor removed from his brain, and a lot of his, brain went with it. And between that and the chemo and radiation, you know, my dad was really pretty much gone within just a couple of months. And so, he definitely wasn't the same from the day he got that surgery. So make sure that, if your parents are still around, that you definitely show them how much you appreciate and love them. And, just give them an extra hug because, frankly, most dads, that's all they need. They need a hug. Just say thank you and that you appreciate what they do. And most of us men we will crawl over crushed glass just to know that you appreciate what we do for the family. And that's just the way we operate. But it's so important for especially young men to have some kind of a positive male role model in your life. And I heard a kind of it was a video by Jordan Peterson. I'm pretty sure it's Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about the interesting thing about males versus females is females can operate, and if it wasn't Jordan Peterson, and I forget who the person, the expert was that was talking, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure it was Jordan Peterson, which he's just phenomenal. I love listening to this guy. But what he was talking about is it's not just men, or it's just not just mankind, but it's any species. So if you look at any species, and specifically for the young males, if they do not have a role model, an older male role model, to teach them what is appropriate and to keep them in line, then a lot of them just don't adjust properly. I think the example that he gave when I was listening to him was um, the silverback gorilla. And whenever there's always one dominant male, and when that dominant male dies or is taken, and the tribe, or whatever you call the group of gorillas, they lose that dominant male, then a lot of the younger males, they just don't adjust correctly, and they lose their whole sense of purpose as being part of the group. And you can see that in just about every species, but you can also see that in our societies. And if you look at all the different young men, especially, that are just not contributors to society, a big reason of that is because of their male role models. Maybe they didn't have one, or they lost it, or whatever. But There's a big problem that we have right now, and that is directly contributes. The graph is almost verbatim between the two of them, between young men acting up, crime going up, and uh, fathers or positive males in the individual households. So if you have a father and you have somebody or a man that you can look up to, and you're a young man, then I hope you're grateful. I hope you understand how important that is. And if you don't have one, then go find one, because there's lots of men out there that can help you. And well, in fact, there's all sorts of stories. I even saw on the news that there was some kind of a dad's group that it was like 5 of them that I saw on that particular day that they were doing this story. And these dads were volunteer. I think the total group, there was like 40 of them, but all of these dads were taking turns going into the schools and helping kind of keep all the kids in line, and trying to be a positive influence in the school and a calming influence into the school. And there's just something about men in society that does that. And I know back to my personally from my family, um, my dad was such a major influence on me and my brothers, and I know that we are who we are in large part because of him. And so, I'm sure every one of you listening to this, you could probably point that out, and your dad was probably the same influence, and if it wasn't your dad, then it's probably uh, another man that was a real positive influence on you. So anyway, I wanted to just kind of throw this out today, just kind of give a little tribute to my dad. And we're coming into Father's Day. I'm extremely blessed to be a father myself, and I take that role very seriously. But again, I contribute a lot of my success, a lot of who I am to my dad, and I'm sure you do too. So just wanted to throw this out, guys, because um, there are people in society, for some reason or another, that are trying to, I don't know, diminish the role of fathers. They're trying to kind of get rid of masculine men. And, you know, sometimes a strong masculine man is what some of these boys need. I know when I was growing up, there were times when I needed some burly, hairy-legged dude to grab me by the scruff of the neck and tell me shape up, or we're gonna go out behind the woodshed, and that was usually my dad. And I'll tell you, there were times when he did, and that was a learning experience that multiple times that. um, yeah, you just didn't mess with my. Oh, let me tell you one more story. I remember specifically, I had this group of friends. I don't know if these guys are listening right now or not, but Brad Warr was in there, and Orlin Egbert, and I'm trying to Mark Levitt. Trying to think of who's some of the other, John Laswell. Anyway, this group of friends that right around my age, that we were all in a scouting program. And I remember specifically when my dad was a scoutmaster and we were out. Um, I think this particular camp out, we were kind of down camping by the Salmon River. And I remember my dad he was very particular about everything that he did when he was camping. And he liked to have his own fire and kind of his own campsite. He would help all the young men set up their tents and get situated, have their own fire to start cooking dinner, that kind of thing. And he was always there. He was always pretty close, and there was always other leaders there with him. So, but he was never really very close. And I think part of it was because most young men, when we're camping, never really sleep. We're always kind of just messing around and being noisy until, just sheer exhaustion, which usually happens pretty late. And so I know my dad used to have his own fire, his own little campsite kind of away, 20, 30 yards away. And he was always very particular about, yeah. And I think this just happened over years and years of being a scoutmaster. He just learned that he was never going to be happy if he was, his tent was anywhere close to the other young men. So I remember his fire was so much nicer than the fire that we had that over the course of the evening, we all kind of migrated over to his fire. Well, which was fine, but it's kind of like when I was growing up in his house, it was his rules. And if I wasn't going to obey his rules, then, it's time to move out. Well, he was the same way with his fire and his campfire. And I remember one time he had this walking stick, and it was a staff. It's probably about 2 inches in diameter, and he'd been carving on that thing for years. And that was the stick that he always had when we went hiking. But it was also almost like a discipline stick. You remember this is in the 70s and 80s, so a lot different than today. But I remember one of my friends was sitting around the fire, and you know how young men get. We just kind of, we're just disgusting creatures, and so we were messing around, and one of my friends, hawked this big loogie and spit it right into his fire. That just didn't go well, and the repercussions of that were immediate. And I think everybody learned really quickly that when you were sitting around Scoutmaster Bradley's campfire, you don't spit in it. You don't. Anyway, nothing goes in that fire that other than wood, and that's only by permission. And so that was just one of those things that he was very particular, and he taught the young men really quickly what was acceptable and what wasn't. And I think that was one of those fun examples. I'm cracking up just thinking about it. But, there's all sorts of other stories that I could tell you about it. When my friends and I, we found this fish hatchery, and yeah, that's another story. But anyway, that day didn't go well either. And that was just one of those learning experiences that I think all of us remember with fondness, but at the same time, there were specific learning points in there, and those could have only been taught by a strong and disciplinary type of a man, and that was definitely my dad. So, all right, guys, that's my tribute to my father, and I hope all of you enjoyed listening to this, and maybe in the future I'll do another episode of it. But there is a direct relationship, and again, I wanted to kind of go back to this. Father's Day is critically important for multiple reasons, and we need to celebrate fathers more, and not just on one day a year. We need to really recognize and understand the importance of fathers in society as a whole, because men in general, number one, they need to have responsibility. And in order for us to fully develop into who we actually are, we need to be, tied to responsibility, and be able to further that, and to teach other younger men how to accept that responsibility and how to use it to excel in society and to better society. None of us in society should get away with anything for free, and we all need to be contributing. And the way that we contribute, especially as men, is obviously being protectors, being providers, and being presiders. And those 3 P's I've learned from when I was a kid: protect, preside, and provide. And if we're not doing those 3 things, then we're not fully living up to who we are as men. And anyway, I hope you enjoy that. And if you guys have any feedback on it, I would love to hear it. Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. hit subscribe, and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.